everybody. Welcome to episode 4 of Compared to What? A show where Federico and I talk about competitive comparison pages, one of the biggest tools in your tool belt for how you're able to explain your differentiation and be very clear and direct about how you're better than the competition. One of the biggest tools in your tool belt. And what we do on this show is actually show real examples, try to show you real use cases of how you can put this type of page into practice and share some tips and best practices, as Federico does this all day, every day. So he's an expert when it comes to these types of pages. So, hey, Federico, welcome to episode 4. So let's tee up today's episode. So today we're talking about comparison pages that are not directly comparison pages, or comparison pages that don't look like a typical comparison page. And so if you've watched our last episode we talked about old tech versus new tech. So comparison pages where you would compare your solution to like the old technology, the old way. And so I know that there might be a lot of similarities people think between last episode and this episode, but there are some big differences. And so Federico, to start off, why don't you, while showing us examples, kind of tee up and kind of explain the difference between the type of comparison page we're talking about today and why it's so important, or how it can be so impactful.
Okay, awesome. And it's kind of related to how you introduced me. So we do comparison pages all day, but these examples that we want to see today, they're not necessarily, you wouldn't call them a comparison page. We're using that idea to show you how you can use this positioning strategy for your brand. But the main difference is that the examples that we're going to see today, they're not pushing the comparison just on their comparison page, and hopefully people are gonna find that page somehow on their website, or gonna come from SEO or PPC or whatever strategy you're trying to push, and then you're gonna send them to that specific asset. The companies that we're gonna see today, they're building their whole story and they're building their brand positioning around the comparison versus something else. And as opposed to last episode where we compared the old tech, a horse, versus the new tech, a car, in this case, we're still seeing similar products being compared, right? But the main difference is that, again, this is not just like on a comparison page. This is around, all around their marketing. Their whole marketing is built around creating that comparison.
So it's almost like this, we're looking at a page, but this is much more than a page. It becomes a part of a company's whole narrative, their whole positioning strategy and their message, that the company as a whole, not necessarily just, a particular campaign or a particular page that kind of exists on their website. This is like part of their go-to-market strategy, their narrative. It's much bigger.
Exactly. Their whole effort is around saying we're like this, but different.
Got it. Cool. Let's see some examples.
Okay, some examples. I have Hey Email open on my screen here. And this is their manifesto page, the Hey Way, they call it. And this used to be even more like priority messaging when they pre-launched the brand. Everything, all their messaging was built around this. Now that they launched, they focus a little bit more on their unique features and their benefits. So you see that messaging first, but they still have this very strong section here on how Hey is unanimously different. And why does it work? Let's talk about why does it work. First of all, when you're anchoring, or when you're building your brand story around that comparison versus something that already exists, what you're doing is you're creating a mental shortcut. So you don't have to explain it all about your product or about your brand. And when I say, for example, it's like coffee without the jitters, you understand exactly what I'm trying to say. You get what I mean. So it's a smart way to tell people what you do, and at the same time, focusing all your efforts on overcoming the main objections that people have about these products or solutions that already exist, right? And Hey Email, it's a great example. And if you look at this manifesto page, you can actually see that happening. So email turned against you. I'm not going to read through all of these. I'm going to highlight certain sections, but their whole story is, why do we exist? Because email failed stop delivering the promise that we wanted email to deliver. And they do call out specific competitors. They talk about Gmail here, Google, Microsoft, Yahoo, Apple, Verizon, all of these competitors, but they're mostly talking about the things that you hate about email. So again, those objections, right? So when people think about, I would love to have an email solution exactly the way that I have today, but without this, that's where Hey it's focusing, right? So they talk about consent to being tracked. They talk about getting less emails, so you're stressed with all this spam that you get every day. So Hey is going to help you not get so much spam. What else?
Yeah. I remember to the point in the beginning, I remember when Hey was first launched, I think this was the page that I first landed on. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't a page on their site that was meant to be, oh, if you're comparing Hey versus, it was part of their launch. It was part of their overall narrative. It was much, much bigger than just a comparison page. And I also like how everything here, I remember when I was reading this, you're just like, luckily they're up against something that's, a big thing that everyone uses and everyone feels the pain of day in, day out. And so you really feel something as you're going through this. But that's what I love about these types of pages where it's almost like a rally cry and the whole company can kind of get around this message and it becomes, again, like we said, much more than just a comparison page.
Yeah, exactly. And all of these ideas are great in surfacing everything that you hate about these solutions and creating this enemy that people really hate, right? So this idea of pay with money, not privacy, and then we're a small company, we're not owned by a big tech company like Google. So they use all of that. Sorry, they use all of that and leverage that for their marketing. And again, this is a shortcut because you don't need to explain what email is. People already know that. You just have to focus on killing the objections that people have around how email works right now. And if people believe you that you're not gonna violate their privacy and you're not gonna read through their emails, you're not gonna get a lot of spam with Hey, then why shouldn't they choose you? And then it also connects to the second idea of why does it work? Why the comparison versus something that already exists work? Because it's a way to empathize with customers and picking a common enemy. So Hey, they're not just choosing all of these ideas just because. They're not coming up with these selling points on their own. This is what people hate about these current solutions. So, and this is a standard persuasion tactic. You have to pick an enemy and tell people, if you're failing at what you're trying to do, it's not because of you. It's because something else, right? And you create this external enemy that is getting in the way of their success, right? And by creating all this narrative, that is exactly what Hey is trying to do. They're trying to say, you have this big enemy, and it's our same enemy, and we're teaming up to beat them, right? And then another great example of this, it's Coda with their campaign, Enough of This Shit. And some of these examples, they're kind of like migrated away from these big ideas already, but at some point, this was the main go-to-market idea for Coda, right? Enough of this shit. And the whole idea was, like you said, rallying around how much people hate spreadsheets, right? And they have this new way of solving that solution. And when you do it with flair and creativity and elegance, the way that Coda did it, what happens is that this guy, he's asking to, I want to buy your Enough of This Shit t-shirt, right? Why? Who's going to be asking, I want to buy a brand merchandising? Nobody really asks that, unless you're really touching on their emotions and making them feel like you understand them and that you're both fighting the same enemy, which is the strategy of picking a common enemy.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like a lot of these start to become part of the brand. I remember with Coda that I'm not sure if I don't think it's still there, but when you go to their website, that image, that tagline is front and center, right? And so it's it's taking like a very competitive message and making it part of like your overall narrative and your overall brand, and it worked with it
Yeah,
obviously really
exactly.
well.
And even if they don't use the tagline enough of this shit anymore, they're still always talking about the new way of creating documents, the new way of collaboration. So they're still anchoring that to the comparison versus spreadsheets.
All right, so Federico, clearly this type of strategy is not it's not the right strategy for everyone, right? We're not saying everyone needs to go out today and create their own kind of the Hayway page or anything like that. But for many people, like it could be a good strategy. So I guess what are your thoughts around when this would work for a company or for everyone watching now? What they should think about in terms of determining whether this is something that they should go out and an approach that they should take or a strategy they should use.
That's a great question, and you're definitely right. It shouldn't be. Uh, it's not a strategy that works for every product or company out there. And I would say it's a combination of one of two ideas. When there's a big player or a small, like a handful of big companies in your space that are taking 99% of the market share, they're everywhere, and it feels, again, for customers, it feels that they can't operate without doing business with them. And it kind of like feels like a trap. They don't want to do business with these companies because they don't like something about their approach. And a good example of this is Facebook, for example. A lot of people hate Facebook because of some privacy issues, some fake news issues, spam issues, bullying issues, but they still feel like there's no way around it. If you want to do paid ads, then you gotta play with Facebook, right? So
Right.
when that's the situation, this could be a great approach because you use that emotional angle of you're hating this, and this is a new way to do exactly what you need without the stuff that you hate. And a great example of this is Fathom. Fathom is a website analytics tool, and their main selling point is privacy-focused analytics. And you could just do that and say that, but they don't stop there. They call out the Google Analytics alternative right away. So, and this is a perfect line if you want to build a comparison page for Fathom versus Google Analytics. And again,
Right.
the whole deal of this episode is they're not just pushing that to the comparison page; they're making it a core part of their marketing, and that's how they describe themselves. It's the Google Analytics alternative that doesn't compromise visitor privacy for data. But they don't just stop there. They show everything that is different from the solution that you already know, which is Google Analytics. So you can cover European Analytics too. You can see all your visitors. Is the main pain for Google Analytics, where they show a big chunk of traffic that you don't know where it's coming from. We sell software, not data. Our script is fast. So all of these objections that people have around Google Analytics, they're trying to say we're exactly the same without these things that you hate. And another great example related to Google too is DuckDuckGo. DuckDuckGo, which is the search engine built for privacy, right? And it's the same approach.
Yeah. It seems like a lot of these are really effective when you can go after something that's a huge competitor or like the status quo, kind of everyone uses it. No one is really happy with it, but there's no real alternative for them. And you're saying, hey, we have a solution. We can save you from all this pain. And really, you can see from all these pages that they're really trying to like drill in on the the challenge and the pain that everyone has with these, and everyone can relate to it. Like you don't see any feature comparison pages, like feature comparison charts on any of these, because that's not the point.
No,
You're really trying to hit on a couple of
exactly.
themes that are really like people can really kind of grasp onto and really feel it and understand at more of an emotional level, which is cool.
Yeah, and I think you just hit the nail in the head about how is this different from a standard comparison page. You don't see the charts, you don't see the feature versus feature comparison because it's not about that. It's about the bigger story,
Right.
right? And these pages are built around that bigger story. So I think that's exactly right.
Yeah. Which I think is good advice for anyone who's creating this. It's you're trying to keep it more about the bigger picture and the bigger story. I think you need to pick your differentiators that you really want to focus in on. Like even on the Hey Way page, I found there was a lot that they were like talking about in terms of,
Mm-hmm.
I think they had a broader theme, but then they had a number of different points, which I was almost, I don't know, got to the point where I was wondering like how many differentiators are we talking about here versus picking like one or two or three really big ones, or at least tying it
Yeah,
up to that theme at the top of the page, which we always talk about pretty much on every episode. So I think
yeah.
I think that's like a thing to remember creating these pages is, how do you distill it down to like one or two really key ideas?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly right. And
Yeah.
then we started talking about when do you want to use this strategy, and I think the second element, which could be connected to the first one, or it could be its own separate thing. It's when you're adding a key innovation to a very common way of solving things right now. So the example of coffee without the jitters, that could be a great example of you're doing something that people already know what it looks like, how it works, and you're not changing the fundamental, at least goal that you get through it, but you're changing something about it. You're making one leap forward on
Mm.
how to get the same result. And the reason why this works is because a lot of innovative products fail because the market is not ready to understand what they're selling or what they're trying to say or what they're trying to achieve. Sometimes innovation is hard to sell because it's a bigger story or it takes more explanation and people getting used to that idea. So
Right.
anchoring that innovation in something that people already know and trust, it kind of like builds that sense of familiarity to your offer. And
Right.
instead of being this new thing that it's overwhelming, that it's hard to understand, and it even kind of like creates risk. Like, why should I pick this? Is this going to work? You just anchor that into something very, very familiar, and you just wrap it around with something new, something different, and again, always, always connected to a main objection that it needs to come from how people currently feel. You can't make it up. You need to anchor that around a common objection that people have and a big objection, hopefully, that people have about their current solutions.
I think that is a great point. I think it's one of the things of being able to anchor yourself in an existing category allows people to
Mm-hmm.
just, there's already that, I believe April Dunford talked about this idea of, they already have space in their mind carved out understanding what that category actually is. And so you're attaching to that because they understand that, and then you can explain your differentiator from there. Everyone who has like a unique value prop doesn't need to create a brand new category, right? Tying yourself to
Mm-hmm.
an
Yeah.
existing category can help by being able to say, mail, right? Like, analytics, like website analytics, like that is an existing category. Here's why we're vastly different than the status quo that exists now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All right, last example, Federico. I know you shared this one with me. I thought this was really interesting. Not your typical comparison page, manifesto page, anything like that. Explain to us what we're looking at here, and kind of and what this type of comparison page actually is.
Yeah. This is a campaign by Zendesk, and they wanted to capture the keyword Zendesk alternative. And this is an entirely different approach. It's not necessarily connected to the theme of this episode, which is a comparison page that is not a comparison page. It kind of like fits that description, but it's not necessarily what we were trying to show with the rest of the examples. This is an entirely different approach. It's very, very unique. So we wanted to share this with you. And it's just a fun experiment. I don't know, like, I gotta be honest, I don't know how what kind of results this achieved for Zendesk,
Yeah.
but I can tell you something. It seems like the last time this was updated was 2016, but when you search for Zendesk alternative, you can still see them in the top 5 results. So at least you got to give them that, right? They're trying to capture that keyword Zendesk alternative, and they're still ranking for that. Probably for a few reasons. Their domain has a lot of authority, and they're interlinking to their main domain. Their URL also has the specific keyword Zendesk alternative, which tends to help. But what they've done is it's something totally different, and they created this idea of a Zendesk alternative as a alternative rock band, and you can spend some time exploring the site. They have some lyrics where they just talk about kind of like the common challenges of customer service, which is the what Zendesk sells, right? A solution to customer support. And they take some stats to their competition. They talk about Freshdesk somewhere around here. And it's just a fun approach to the standard comparison page. I think what they were trying to do was just trying something different, maybe getting some PR, getting some links out of this initiative, and just having a little fun changing the approach.
I think it's definitely a way to show their brand, and if they consider their brand or like their brand style to be something that's unique to their company and their customers like and things like that, like it could be a way to show that off. I feel like we were talking about this a little bit before. I feel like they missed an opportunity here to, obviously it's capturing like some organic traffic. And to your point earlier, you said if people are Googling Zendesk alternative, they already know what Zendesk is. So they might be an existing customer, or they might be evaluating this type of tool, and Zendesk for them, they already know it because, Zendesk has a great brand. And so, so that Zendesk is already part of that evaluation in some way. And, but it would be interesting if this is a great way to capture that organic traffic, but I feel like filtering it back to some type of, whether it's, I know, because we both know they have more traditional competitive comparison pages, or like a way to kind of filter that back into this sort of page. I feel like they missed that opportunity there, and they could have done it in a fun way. I'm sure there's some creative ways they could have did it, but it's cool where like that first page, I'm sure when they launched it, it got some PR. Like it's a great thing that you could generate a lot of buzz around, but at the same time, directing people back to your actual message about how you're different. I think it seems like they maybe missed that opportunity.
Yeah, maybe if you take a look at their timeline, there's been a disconnect. They went with this Zendesk alternative campaign before they created the more standard comparison pages, as this one we're seeing Zendesk versus Freshdesk. And they obviously see the value of creating these classic comparison pages because they do have them. But I agree with you. Like, even if the Zendesk alternative, this website is an old campaign, I think it mainly because it's still ranking, so it's probably bringing traffic still. It might require a little update, and then a way to link people back to a more, let's say, useful resource. Because the number one thing that this campaign is not doing is serving the intent of somebody that is searching for Zendesk.
Exactly, yeah.
So somebody that is searching for that, they want to get answers. They're doing the research and they want to make a choice. So you want to help them make that choice. And hopefully you lead them your way instead of the way of the competitor. And a good way to capture that intent is, yes, you show them this, you show them you're a unique brand, you have a unique approach, which sometimes that sells. People want to do business with brands that they have an emotional attachment to. But then again, link them to a more useful resource they can use to compare you versus competitors.
Great. Yeah, I think it's a great point. Yeah, people people end up landing on this page with a very clear question and need. They're on a mission, and you are not leading them anywhere helpful. So I think it's a good point about how you could have. Yeah, I'm hopefully people could take and get creative ideas from this, but ultimately knowing that you eventually have to lead them to the answers they're looking for. So. Yeah, I love this example. It's also from 2016, you said? So I don't even know, were comparison pages even popular back then? Who knows?
It's been a few years. 2016. I think the first comparison page that I saw was Yeah, I wouldn't say longer than 3, 4 years. So this is probably before comparison pages were a thing.
All right,
Yeah.
well, I think that that covers it for this episode. Right? But thanks again,
Yeah.
Federico. I really like this kind of unique angle to competitive comparison pages. So appreciate everyone for tuning in. Thanks for watching this episode of Compared to What. Tune in for the next episode, and definitely, if you ever have any questions or feedback on the show, hit up Federico and I on LinkedIn. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks a lot, everyone. See ya.
Thanks, everyone.